You ever seen drawing like this? Things look like they're going off into the distance, but it's just all flat. This is the illusion called linear perspective. And this is what we're going to learn over the next few days. It's a pretty amazing way to draw. The people back in the 1400s, in a time period called the Renaissance, came up with ways to draw and make things look in depth. Before that time, artworks were a lot flatter. So this marks a really important time in history when linear perspective was invented to show that depth of the real world on a flat surface. So we're going to work with this and kind of get into it little by little. There are a lot of tutorials that you can look up online for how to draw this. And so, as like anything else I teach, I'll tell you that it's a way, it's not necessarily the way. But over the years, I've kind of developed a way that I think makes it easier to understand. I've kind of pared away a lot of the bells and whistles at the beginning, and instead we're just going to look at how the structure works, and then gradually work into some things that are more complex and more interesting. And then the fun begins because we get to put that with shading, with color and texture, so we come up with this picture that's not just lines, but it has all the elements working together. Alright, so here's a list of what you'll need. You'll need your ruler. You'll need a few sheets of blank paper. Remember that your paper is available in the office, front office of the main campus. You can pick this up anytime you need. Also, the kits. There were a lot of kits last time I was down there that weren't picked up. So I've taken some back into the classroom because they needed space in the office. So if you want to pick your kit up, and if you haven't, I highly recommend that you do. If you will just email me, I'll make sure that yours is down there with your name on it and you can pick it up. So, but what we're going to use is a half a sheet of the 9x12. The 9x12 paper is the standard paper. So it would be like this. And we're just going to use half. So if you get two sheets of that 9x12, cut it in half, you'll have 4 of these. And that's plenty to work with. A regular pencil, number 2 pencil works. Mechanical pencil works. Just don't use the ebony because this is a more precise drawing, and the ebony pencil is more for shading. Also, it'd be good to have your big eraser, and it's optional to have a compass. We won't need it very much, so you could also maybe use just a quarter or something round to draw around. But if you have one around, you might want to get it. Okay, so a few things to remember as we get started. First of all, draw lightly. I know I say that a lot, but I'll be drawing darker so you can see my lines on the camera better. But draw really lightly so that erasing is easier. And also, be accurate. You want to make sure when we're drawing lines, they're going to go from certain places to certain places. You want to make sure that they are ruler accurate. Very, very important. Now here are the steps that we're going to follow. So in class, we usually write this on the back of one of the drawings. So this would be a good thing to write down. So you can pause this and go through this list. But with 1-point perspective, and we're working with what I call a perfect world, where everything is lined up exactly square, here's what you'll do. Before you get into the steps, you want to set a vanishing point. So you'll see me do that. That will serve the whole page. You need only one because we're doing 1-point perspective. Then we're going to draw a shape. Connect the visible corners to the vanishing point using a ruler. And again, I will explain what visible corners are. Close all sides of the drawing with lines parallel to the sides from step 1. So as you write those, it may not make a whole lot of sense, but once you've drawn a few of these, then you look back on these steps, it'll make sense and it'll all kind of come together. So one of the things you'll be drawing down the road a little bit is a drawing like this. So if you're looking at this and thinking there's absolutely no way I can draw something like that, you will surprise yourself because there's nothing in here that we're not going to do in a simple form here in just a minute. So kind of hold your judgment on what you think you can do, and we'll see where you get from there. Alright, so we're going to start on this regular page, and you wanted to put your vanishing point not too close to the edges. For these notes, what I do is I kind of find about where the middle is and put a little dot. Now, a vanishing point the size that I would want you to do would be about like this. And you can see that's really hard to see. So I want to kind of play mine up, but make sure yours stays really small. So I'll make mine a little bigger to make it where you can see it. Okay, now the first step, it says it's to draw a shape. And I'm going to put the shape in a particular place because I want your notes to be really clear. And if we can do certain things in certain orders, we can do fewer drawings for practice and get into more of them on the drawing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line the ruler up where it's centered on the vanishing point and it's vertical. It's not leaning. You can check it with the edges. And just use your ruler to draw the edges. The shape we're going to draw is just a square or a rectangle. And then just turn your ruler this way and do the same thing. So we're just making it easy. And erase out any straight lines. And so you get a square pretty easily. Let me darken that in. Step 2 says connect the visible corners to the vanishing point using a ruler. So let me demonstrate what that is by drawing too much. So watch this before you draw. If I just went ahead and connected all the corners to the vanishing point, notice I'm being accurate. I'm going straight to, I'm not hitting. If you had a big vanishing point you could hit on several places. That's going to throw off your accuracy. Now there's nothing wrong, there's no lines in here that are incorrect. There's just lines we don't need because what we're creating is an opaque cube, which means that you cannot see through it. So if you can't see through this cube, we don't need these lines. So we take those out, and we take them down all the way down actually. Again, at this point I wouldn't be drawing, just kind of watch. So if I went ahead at this point and did step 3, close all the sides with lines parallel to the sides from step 1. So here's step 1, and I have only one side. So all I have to do is use this see-through ruler. Again, these are in your kit. And just decide if I want my box to be kind of small, I could put it there. If I want it to be longer, you want to put it there. You just don't want to leave it going off into forever because that kind of represents infinity, going off to the end of the earth or the end of the universe. So I'm just going to pick one kind of in the middle. And again, it's important to be parallel. This is step 3 right here where my pencil is tracing. Parallel to the sides of step 1 and just draw that line. Now, going back to what I said about visible corners, this would be a visible corner because in the end you needed that, even though you erased a little bit out. Same thing from the bottom right. The top 2 corners, they were correct, but you don't need them. They're unnecessary. And so you've got that finished. That's a cube. So if you can draw that, there's nothing in here that's not just applications of the same thing. So now we're going to try a cube over here to the side. Make sure that you don't lean it. It would be correct, but it's not going to show you what I want you to see. This cube, you're seeing 2 sides. So think to yourself for a minute how many sides a cube has total. So we're going to come over here and do the same thing. Keep the ruler straight. So if you think of it as a clock, and this is the center, kind of like we did with the color wheel, we've got a cube at 12. We're going to put a cube about 130. And we'll draw 2 vertical lines, and we'll turn it. Draw the horizontal. So this ruler really makes it easy to do that part. So I've got step 1. Now step 2, this is a good chance to practice and make sure you understand visible corners. All you have to do is check and see. If you line up a corner, for example the bottom right, and it's unobstructed, there's nothing in the way, then you need that line. It's a visible corner. Same thing for the bottom left, just like you did over here. Notice though you have a third corner here because of the location. The only thing that's changed is the location. You've moved this over, so now you can see that side. So from the top left, we'll draw down, then we'll look at the top right. Now notice it goes behind itself. It goes behind the front of the cube and the side, so that would not be a visible corner. So before too long, you'll get really good at recognizing those. You just check them. Step 3 says to close the sides with parallel lines. So this side will be parallel to this line from step 1. This side parallel to here. This is the step that most people mess up on if they're going to. So make sure that you watch this and go back and watch it if you need to. So again, just pick your size. You could make a cube that's not very deep. Make one that's deeper. I'll make this just a little bit shallower. Well, it's about the same as the other one. So I've lined up here. That's crucial. That's very important. And then I'm going to draw in just that part. And so what you create back here is a corner here. So it turns and goes that direction. It's going to turn and go that direction. So all you got to do is just line this up. An easy way is put your pencil so your ruler can bump against it. And then before you draw, make sure this is lined up. And you got your second cube. Alright, so let's try something over here. And again, I'm moving kind of quick, but remember that you can pause, go back and look at this at any time. I want to draw a triangle. And I'm putting it in a particular spot. Actually, I'm going to put that a little bit lower. You could draw a triangle anywhere on here for step 1, and it would work. This view just shows you more of what's eventually going to be a prism. P-R-I-S-M, prism. Alright, so step 1 now looks a little different. Step 2, connect the visible corners. So I check the bottom left. I need it. I check the bottom right. I need it. And also the top. So there's just 3 corners. In this viewpoint, you would have all 3 showing. If you put it down here, you would have only 2 corners showing. So it's just where you put it makes a big difference. Going back really quick while I'm stopped, cubes have 6 sides. The most you're going to see at any one time is 3. So step 3 said to use parallel lines. So if we got this angle here, then we got to scoot this back, however big we want to make it, and just make sure that it's lined up here. So if you can check here, you can avoid the biggest mistake, which is step 3. Just line up there and draw down. It creates a back corner, and you just make sure you're on that corner. Check right here first. Make sure that's lined up, then draw across. Now if you drew this a little lower, that side would be a little smaller. The vanishing point will take care of all of that for you. You don't even have to worry about it. And down here, I'm going to do the same steps. Whoops. Okay, I'll just do it this way. Well, I need a little smaller circle. So, step 1 would be a circle. Now this is where we talk about something from math class. Geometry talks about a place to where a straight line meets an arc, a portion of a circle. The name of that is a tangent. And what that is, that helps you find the corner, because you need a corner in step 2. So step 1 is the circle, that's the shape. Step 2, if you just put your pencil on the vanishing point, and then just lower your ruler until it barely first touches your shape. And that's the corner of the circle. Then the same thing right here. Just bring that up. Soon as it touches, you don't want to go in any. As soon as it touches, that's your corner. That'll work not only on circles, but it'll work on ovals, any kind of odd things, anything that's not an angle. So, step 3, you want a line parallel to this. Sometimes you can just scoot this back and get pretty close, but notice it doesn't quite look right. So sometimes I'll draw that, and then I'll start to shape it a little bit myself and sort of blend it in. But it has to be a curve that matches the front curve. So just like step 3 matched here, it matched here and there, it has to match there. So if you've drawn these 4 basic forms in 1-point perspective, and you followed these steps, what you have is the ability to draw angles. You can move those angles and put them anywhere you want. If the angles aren't right angles, like a square or a rectangle, you can deal with them. And if it's not angles but curves, you also have that. So if you came over here and drew something like that's a much more complex shape than that. So see if you can figure that out. I'm going to pause and I'm going to add lines a little bit at a time. But before you do this, pause the video and see if you can figure that one out based on those 3 steps. So I've got this one started. Step 1 is the shape. Step 2, connect visible corners. You just have to check them all. So here is a corner. Here is a corner. No corners in there. That'll be done more with shading. So it'll look like it needs something, but this is not the place for that. This is just for the corners. There's one there. And the side that's closest to the vanishing point you're going to see more of. When you get around here, you'll see bits and pieces or none at all. So again, there's no corners till you get here. There. And the way that I drew this, I don't have anything back here, so I'm going to change this just so you can kind of see. Here is a hidden corner. This one's hidden. That one's hidden. Here's one I would see part of. So I could draw the whole thing, but if you start to kind of see that I'm lined up, that's important. You have to be lined up where you could draw the whole thing. But I can draw only the part that I need and just leave it at that. And then as I check through here, all the rest of these are hidden, so you're not going to see those. So it kind of looks like it's exploding out from the center. Now step 3, there are a few things here that's really hard to get into words as I'm teaching this. They're kind of things you sort of have to figure out. This is where I help individually in class, so we can't really do that, but I'll kind of explain a little more than I usually do in class. Step 3 is just parallel lines. So you've got this one. I'll do it real close so you can see it. So you do a parallel line. Now right here, this curves, and it's going to kind of disappear. I want to show you why. If I skip over here, because sometimes you'll have to skip some areas and come back, all I have to do is put the same space. So this was the front edge, a parallel line, the front edge. I want to come back about the same space as I did there. Now, once I've got both sides like that, what I can do is follow this curve. This curve comes down, and notice where it's heading. The front curve heads to the front. The back curve is heading to the back, which means that you're going to have this part of the line that you don't see. That's why it kind of disappears into itself. If it helps, you can draw this line, but you can also just kind of sort of aim it like that and know where you're headed. So those are things that will come as you start to draw a little more. Parallel line, parallel line. And again, I want to jump ahead, keep that same width, put a parallel line there. And I know I'm going from front point to front point, so here I'm going back point to back point. So as I come up through here, oops, that's not dotted. That's going to show, and it's headed towards there. So that's how you get those little areas like that. And down here you just carry that same width. And then these lines would erase out. Now you can leave those in your notes, these notes. Sometimes what I'll do is just erase them a little bit, kind of make them dotted lines. It'll make it a little bit easier to see the illustration. If you can draw this, you can draw pretty much anything that you want to draw. Not even pretty much, you can draw anything. So what we're going to do next, I'm going to switch to a clean sheet, and we're going to work on overlapping. Alright, so we're working on overlapping. I went ahead and drew some things here. I moved the vanishing point a little bit off center just to show you that you can move it around. If you want to make it look like you're above things looking down, move your vanishing point up. Same thing if you want a bug's eye view down below, you can move it lower. And you can also move it left and right to control which side of the picture. So those are things you can set at the first of a picture and have a lot of control over your viewpoint. Now what I want to do is to overlap something in front of this. I'm going to put one in front and one behind. So if I wanted one in front, what I want to do, the way I do it, I think is easiest, is just draw the whole second cube as if it's totally clear. Then when you're done, you just figure out the lines that you have to erase to make one look like it's in front. That way there's no extra steps, you're just drawing the same thing. So if I wanted a little cube right here, that's going to overlap this first cube. That's cube 1. Then I'm using these steps. Here's step 2. And, oops, where do I want to put that? I'll do about right there. Here's step 3. Okay, so now I've got these two cubes. So when I look at this, I can realize if this cube is in front, then I'm going to see a little bit of the bottom. Then this part will disappear because cube 2 blocks it. You don't see any of that. And it blocks a little bit of that. Let me get my guideline out of there. And so what I did is I just left the parts that show and got rid of the parts that got blocked. If you draw lightly, that is really easy to do. And then just erase as you go, so you don't have to go back and figure it out, later on when you're drawing 10 other shapes. So let's see, back here, maybe I want to put a cube that goes back longer, so I won't see the bottom corner, but I still have to know where those points are. So same thing, I'm going to draw a cube back here, and it's just easier to draw the whole thing because then you know temporarily where that corner is. And so if I draw back with my visible corners, oops, did not do well on that one. Accuracy is very important. Notice it's getting really skinny here because I'm getting close to what's called the horizon line, which is always where the vanishing point is located. So the closer I get to there, the less I'll see at the top. If I drew a cube up here, I'm going to see the bottom of it. And then I can make the back, let's see, I'm going to bring it way back here, make it really long. Just to show you that even though it's a long stretch, you still parallel, still, on that case, vertical. You still line up with that corner, and you still make sure that your ruler is parallel up here, even though it's a longer reach. So I'll darken in the part I'm going to keep so you can see it a little better. And that way back here is accurate. I didn't have to guess at it. And then all of this part would erase out. So that now I've got a cube behind. So once you add things, you can add in front, behind, and it's really easy to overlap. Remember, this is the first one I added. I can add ones around it. Again, the key is accuracy and drawing lightly. Make sure you're going to that vanishing point. If you want to see what these would look like above, just flip it over. You can see the bottoms of all those cubes. If they are to the side, you can kind of see how they'd be oriented. On the other side, oops, like that. So you can see a lot of things with that just by drawing those three overlapping. Take a minute to practice a few extras, overlaps in different forms. Maybe try some things like triangles and circles for step one, or some odd shapes that you make up.